here. Everybody please pay attention. We're going to look at number 8 on the homework. Okay. Number 8 is an equation with fractions in it. This is from worksheet SGI number 1. This is the first one that we're doing, and we're going to get another one today. But anyways, we have an equation here, and it has obviously fractions in it. So the easiest thing to do when you have fractions, especially if both of them have the same denominator, is to simply multiply everything by the denominator 4. So if I put a times 4 right here, and a times 4 on the 5, and a times 4 over here, and a times 4 on the 1, multiply everything by 4, and that'll actually get rid of both of those fractions with the denominator 4. Check it out. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So what do we have left? We have a 3k. 4 times 5, up here, 4 times 5 is 20, and we put the minus in front. That'll be minus 20. And the 4 on top with the 4 on the bottom, 4 divided by 4 cancels out. It's 1. So you have an equal sign, and you end up with a 1k. And last but not least, you have a minus 4 because 1 times 4 is 4. Hopefully you guys are all paying attention. Okay? So we want to get k by itself on one side. The problem is you can't get k by itself on one side because you have k's on both sides. So you need to get rid of one of them, right? So let's get rid of this 1k by doing the opposite of 1k, which would be subtracting 1k. So let's subtract 1k on both sides to maintain the equality of this equation. So obviously on the right side, 1k take away 1k is nothing. On the right side, 3k take away 1k is 2k. Bring down everything. Bring down the minus 20. Bring down the equal sign right here. Bring down the minus 4 over here. And there's your new equation. 2k minus 20 equals negative 4. Next, I'm going to add 20 and add 20 to get the 2k by itself. I want the k by itself. So if I add 20 to both sides, that'll cancel on the left. Let me zoom out a little to have more space. I'm going to have 2k left over, the equal sign, and 16, because negative 4 plus 20 is 16. For my final step, I'm simply going to divide by 2 and divide by 2, which means that k equals 8. And that's your answer. Now your answers are printed on the back side of your worksheet. So if you flip it over and you check number 8, it should be the answer 8. That's how you get rid of fractions, or that's how you solve equations with fractions in them. Now, sometimes you don't have the same denominator. Like we could look at actually 16. So we could do this 2 different ways. We could get rid of all fractions at the same time by finding your LCD and multiplying everything by your LCD, or we could get rid of one fraction at a time. So I want to do it both ways so you guys choose the method you feel best with. So let's say I wanted to get rid of one of them at a time. Well, I could get rid of this 2/3 by multiplying it by what? Well, let's just get rid of the 2/3, not both, just 3. So I want to multiply by 3. I want to multiply by 3, multiply by 3, multiply everything by 3. The 3 over 3 cancels. I have a 2n left over. I bring down the plus 24. Bring down the equal sign. Now, this 3 up here and this 2 down here do not cancel. They're not the same. So I actually have to multiply 3 times 1. And I will get 3 times 1 is 3. And it's still over 2, and there's still an n right beside it. And then I have a plus 6 at the very end because 2 times 3 is 6. So the only difference between the first equation and this new equation is that the first one had the fraction 2/3 in it. Now it's just a beautiful 2n. Now, this second equation, I still need to get rid of this 3/2. How do I do that? By multiplying everything by what? 2. So I put a times 2 here, times 2 there, times 2 there, times 2 there. And I will have 4n plus 48, because 24 times 2 is 48, equals, right here, the 2 over 2 cancels out. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So all I have left is the 3n. And at the very end, plus 6 times 2, which is 12. Now this is my new equation. No fractions in it. Now it's a little easier. Now I could think of getting n by itself on one side, but then I say, wait a minute, there's another n over here. I have n's on both sides of my equal sign. I don't want n's on both sides of my equal sign. So I'm going to get rid of the 3n by subtracting 3n. That'll cancel out. What I do to one side, I do to the other side, subtract 3n there. So I will have a 1n left over, or just n. Bring down the plus 48, bring down the equal sign, bring down the 12. Now all I need to do is get n by itself. So I need to get rid of that 48 by subtracting 48, and I will have n, because this guy canceled out, equals, that would be negative 36. N equals negative 36 is my final answer there. Now, this problem could be done a little bit faster. It took a long time because I decided to get rid of one fraction at a time. I first got rid of the 2/3, and then I got rid of the 3/2. But you could get rid of both fractions at the same time. So let me clear this whole thing and get rid of both at the same time and show you that we'll end up with the same answer. It'll just be a little faster. So the other option to get rid of both at the same time would be to multiply everything by your LCD. Now, what is LCD? It's the lowest common denominator. So we do have two denominators, a 3 and a 2. So the first thing to do is go to your biggest denominator and ask yourself, could I change the smaller one to look like the bigger one? In this case, no. If this were a 4, then that would be your LCD, because 2 times 2 is 4. But it's not a 4, it's a 3. So you go 3 times 2, that would be 6. And 2 times 3 would be 6. So your LCD of both denominators would be 6. So you got to know that first. You need to be able to find your LCD. And once you know your LCD, you multiply everything by the LCD, and it'll get rid of all fractions at the same time. Okay? So let's actually go through and multiply everything by 6, and you'll see that it'll get rid of all fractions at the same time. All fractions at once, I shouldn't say at the same time. So when you have a 6 on top and a 3 on the bottom, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. And over here, where I have the 6 times 8, that gives me a plus 48. And over here, I have 6 divided by 2, that's 3. And 3 times 1, n, equals 3n. Should have done that in blue. Okay? And last but not least, 2 times 6 is 12. So as you see, I got rid of all the fractions at the same time by multiplying by the LCD. So it's sometimes a great idea to think a little bit longer and not just start getting rid of fractions. Think about the LCD, and that way you could have an equation without fractions just with one step. Now, if you're not good at finding the LCD, then of course, yeah, get rid of one of them at a time. I'm not going to finish this because if we did, we'd get the same answer as before. So let me see if there's any other ones. Let's do 7. Now 7 will be a little funky because of the huge number 88. But either way, you could get rid of one fraction at a time. So in other words, I could multiply by 2, cancel it out, multiply by 2, get an 8. Multiply by 2, it'll be 2 over 8, which reduces down to 1 over 4. Multiply by 2, you get 176. And you'll get big numbers, but you'd still have to get rid of the other fraction. So it might be a better idea to multiply everything by the LCD to get rid of both at the same time. Okay? So what would the LCD be? First, go to your biggest denominator and ask yourself, could the 2 become an 8? Yes, so that tells you that your LCD is 8. So let's multiply everything by 8. Multiply the 1/2 by 8, the 4 by 8, this 1/8 by 8, and also 88 times 8. I'm going to need a little help from somebody that has a calculator. Figure out what 88 times 8 is. Anyhow, when I multiply by the LCD, the 8 over 2 cancels out, and that gives me a 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And, okay guys, take it easy. We're not there yet. Okay, so 4 times 1 is 4b. Okay, and then plus 8 times 4 is 32. And then equals, and up here the 8 over 8 cancels out. So you end up with 1b, or just b. And now the 88 times 8 is what? 704. Okay, so I want to put plus 704. So we got rid of both fractions at the same time. Now it's just a question of getting the b by itself on one side. Here's b, but then again there's a b over here on this side of the equal sign. So let's get rid of this guy, move it over to this side. That way we could solve for b and get it by itself on the left side. So I want to get rid of that b by subtracting b. It's going to cancel. subtracting b, you will have 3b plus 32 equals 704. Now we're going to need some calculator help here, guys. Let's subtract 32 to get the b by itself. Subtract 32.
672.
Okay, so we have 3b equals, you said 672. I don't know, I believe you, I trust you. And let's go on to the last step, dividing by 3. And again, we need some calculator help.
224.
So b equals 224. Let me write that down. b equals 224. And if you check the back side of your worksheet, you should see the answer 224 for number 7. Yay?
Yay.
Okay.